on to the game that JJ and I we've sort of been looking forward to for a while now, because
Tents and Trees.
Tents and Trees Game of the Year. We will get into that event again. Zach, we were giggling about where that was falling on Game of the Year list, but holy shit, we ended up liking that game. I downloaded it too and then played it. But we're wrestling fans. We used to run SQW, the SideQuesting wrestling podcast, for so long. We go to wrestling events all the time. We watch wrestling shows. We talk about wrestling. We're in the wrestling community to some extent. And we've been playing AEW Fight Forever.
Forever.
We got the code a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Codes for both of us. And we've mostly been playing on Steam Deck. I know I've been playing exclusively on Steam Deck. JJ, you probably as well.
Yeah, mostly
game
Steam
releases
Deck, but I definitely
tomorrow.
have played desktop style. So
okay, I didn't play desktop. I played on Steam Deck because I love it. Just I don't have the time to sit in front of a computer to play games, so I like to be mobile and do that. And again, another game I was playing out on the hammock. We have a really cheap hammock, and this thing, Steam Deck, is great for that. Handheld games.
It's a hammock game.
Yeah.
Right now you are screaming or yawning, and that's great. He is not yawning because the game's boring, because this game is great. I'm going to show you right now. Let me see if I can open up a window here.
It's been fun. So what? It's the 28th, right, when we're doing this, in case you're listening to it later. So the embargo went up today. So I was really curious what people's opinions on this game was going to end up being, because I knew it was going to be divisive.
Yes.
And I was mostly right. A little more divisive than I kind of expected, in terms of sort of, I don't know what people expected out of this game, but like day one, it was really clear what this game was going to be.
What they were trying to do with it.
Yeah. So I don't know what else to like.
So here's the way I kind of put it is I'm going to play the 4 pillars match. The way I kind of think of this game is it is AEW 101, right? There are folks out there who aren't, who maybe don't know about AEW as much as WWE, because they've grown up out of that era, but out of wrestling, and the only thing they know of right now is WWE. But they do remember,
it's the lapsed fan game.
It's the lapsed fan. I haven't played a wrestling game since the early 2000s. The N64 games, and I think I played a little bit on like PS2 and GameCube, but that was it. I haven't touched them because it just never seemed all that great to me. I love No Mercy. I think No Mercy is legendary for what it was trying to be. A lot of those folks developed this game. Kenny Omega had a lot of development in this game.
They specifically went to Ukes because they knew that it's the thing that the fans have been sort of pining for so long. Is a sort of return to a simple wrestling game.
Yep.
So I guess I'll talk about wrestling games for just a hot minute.
Yeah, do it.
Because I've been playing. I don't miss wrestling games. Like,
not at all, huh?
There's been sort of a renaissance of wrestling games lately. You can go online and find a shit ton of wrestling games that have come up in the last few years. You know, WWE has a new game mostly every year. There was the one year where they had to miss it because the game that they had just released was hot garbage and didn't work.
I remember that one.
And so, but they're kind of back in their annual thing. You got that. You got Fire Pro Wrestling. So WWE 2K is supposed to be sort of the sim. It's hard to sim wrestling because what makes professional wrestling is hard to convey in a video game. WWE is mostly just a fighting game, a straight fighting game. It's hard to tell stories in a wrestling match in WWE, and there's some nuance that is lost in the WWE stuff. Fire Pro Wrestling is definitely more of a hardcore enthusiast's take on wrestling. Yeah, it's a HD 2D now, kind of wrestling game that's kind of infinitely customizable, and it's much more difficult to play. It's kind of like the Guilty Gear of professional wrestling games. It requires a sort of touch to play that a typical fighting game player is not going to have. And it's typical wrestling game player is not going to have. And then you got the arcade stuff. You've got Action Arcade Wrestling, which used to be the Chikara wrestling game until Chikara folded. You've got the wrestling. Oh, what's the arcade game that's based off WWF Superstars?
Oh yeah, I remember. I know what you're talking about.
It's got like Warhorse and guys in it. Yeah, that one's good. But that's just kind of an arcade fighting game.
What's the one Jeremy played?
Wrestling Revolution, which is that game is bananas. It's barely a wrestling game, but boy howdy is it probably of the games that I've mentioned the most entertaining to play. That's for damn sure. And the title menu is a bootleg Kanye song. It's very good. But now, so you have AEW, which is coming in as this game that is not just inspired by the old Nintendo 64 games. I would say that this is, if they kept making them, this is what it would be right now, because the control scheme is virtually unchanged.
It's unchanged, man. It feels just as chonky as those original games. I love it.
Here's the thing that made those Nintendo 64 games so good is that they were slow. And methodical. Like, you only had a handful of button inputs you could do, but like it really sort of really sort of made you think about momentum, because it's not health bar based. The Nintendo 64 games are not health based. You can see it on this screen
right at the
here.
bottom there, the little those bars that are bouncing back and forth.
Those are momentum. So when you're doing good, it gets more, that meter gets more and more full. And it's the same way in the Nintendo 64 games. If you're taking a beating, it gets lower and lower. And if it's super small, if it's in the blue range, the likelihood of you getting thrown out of the ring or pinned or submitted goes up 1,000-fold. But when you're in this high level like this, it increases your chances of kicking out of holding
a pin or an attack or
a submission or getting thrown over the top rope in a battle royale or whatever. And when you get
real?
What
is wrestling real?
Yes,
it's the realest real.
Yeah. There's nothing more real. It's the only real sport. So it's momentum based, and I love the idea. I've always loved the idea in the Nintendo 64 games that is made up of here is, as long as you're good at it, you can get a couple of finishers in, because the way you because you can see where it says signature right there
at the bottom.
So when you go into signature, you flick the right stick and you do a taunt, and it activates your special move. And you can use your special move as many times as you want for the few seconds that the finisher is fully activated. And that's a really, really cool way of doing professional wrestling. And finishers, unlike WWE, actually feel like they do something. Like, if you hit a finisher on somebody, it can really take them down. So I really like the way the gameplay of this game is the best for a wrestling game. There's a lot of everything else that surrounds it that is not necessarily great in this game.
My experience with wrestling games is NWO, I think, on the N64.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's that there were 4 games. There was WCW World Tour, WCW NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, WWF WrestleMania 2000, and WWF No Mercy. They're all basically the same gameplay style. And this is the next in that lineage. It's the exact same.
My older brother Eric he would make me play these with him,
Yeah.
and I was like 5 or 6, so I would always lose. But
Yeah.
that's like the concept of these games, and
Yeah.
I've always like. Anytime I see the newer ones, I always still think that they control the same, like how they control
Yeah.
back
Do
with like
not.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just like it's funny to hear you say they're still got the chunky controls because I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if they got the same controls, and they
Yeah.
do. So that's
It
funny.
100% does. Like a modern WWE game relies so heavily on chain wrestling and
Mhm.
reversals.
Mhm.
It's kind of irritating. It's getting to the point now where
It's almost
yeah.
tactical. It's
Yeah.
almost like more tactical than it.
Yeah, you have to like memorize timing windows
Yep.
and stuff and everything.
Or
I
like
also
the
want to
UFC games that people play.
yeah, and I want to point out, so the referee in, as you can see in here, is Aubrey Edwards.
Yep.
And she's actually done game stuff. She's an
she's
actual game.
Yeah, she's a game developer. She graduated with a game dev degree
Yeah.
from what's it
Yeah.
called?
She's
That famous one in Seattle
the
area.
Digipen. She's from
Digipen, yeah.
she's from here. She used to be a referee for Defy Wrestling
Yep.
and her ring name was only you will appreciate this, Dali, but it was Girl Hebner.
Love it.
Earl Hebner.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
So I'm gonna before we get to some of the stuff that you may not
Yeah.
love, I'm coming at this. So JJ is the established wrestling guy in terms of games and stuff. I'm the lapsed guy who hasn't touched a wrestling game in forever because I thought, okay, I'm good enough just watching. Nothing captures that feeling. So I first started playing wrestling games in the 80s. A lot of people did, with pro wrestling on the NES. I think WrestleMania. I think WWF Superstars, whatever. Those games on the NES is where me and my buddies would get together in the summers and we'd play pro wrestling with Starman, and then we'd play WWE Superstars with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and all that kind of stuff, and Andre. And we would just play those for hours every day and then watch WWE on Saturday mornings because that's when it was, back then. And so that was, for us, that was great. And then that moved into the 90s and we played the games, the N64 games in college. We'd watch WCW Nitro on Mondays, and then we'd play the NWO or whatever, the games on N64. And we had a blast doing that. And then it kind of died off for us because we got real life hit, had to work, couldn't spend as much on games in the early 2000s, yada, yada, yada. We were too busy making songs and redoing We Didn't Stop the Fire. Start the fire. So I lapsed. And I lost, 3 generations of wrestling games. And for all intents and purposes, they really weren't very good from the early 2000s.
Well, and also you have to keep in mind that the 2K games and the SmackDown games are not that far removed from one another.
Yes,
so
exactly. So, then it came down to just one wrestling game, and it was just the WWE 2K stuff, and that was it. And so I thought I wasn't interested. Once it became annualized ish, I thought I'll get it next year, and I never got it. And I think that happened to a lot of people who used to love wrestling games because they were events. Wrestling games were these big event things that you would buy, and you'd play it over and over again. You'd play a wrestling game forever. You would fight forever. I'm gonna hit the replay on this because we can start it. And so that was me. I got into wrestling again lately. I'm a huge AEW fan. I thought if I'm going to hop in, let me start with the one that I'm enjoying the most because I really love AEW because of its more sort of indie circuit, international, everything is linked. They understand that they're one of many promotions as opposed to WWE just thinking that they're the only promotion. And so, I started watching AEW. I thought I'm gonna play this game. I was really getting excited for it, and it has mostly hit everything I've wanted it to hit. I played online. I liked playing online. I've only played like 3 or 4 matches online, so not that much. But I'm more excited about doing some couch co-op with friends on this one because I think this would be a blast, especially for like my brother-in-law and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law are getting into AEW. They're big WWE fans, but they've slowly been getting into AEW because of, a lot of the WWE stars going over. And so this for my brother-in-law, I think he would absolutely dig this because this is AEW 101. This is the history of AEW. This game is essentially how AEW starts. Like they go through a lot of the history of like the road to elite is what they call the career mode in this, which is it starts off the very first AEW event, basically, right? And so your character enters the Casino Royale, which you draw your card. You got to try to last through this Casino Royale to the very end. I did, by the way. I kicked butt as my guy, which you'll see in a second, when I introduce him here.
Can I just say, for that, I didn't create a wrestler for it. I just picked Bryan Danielson.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I drew second.
Oh, dude, nice.
I won.
Yep. I think I drew second as well with my creator wrestler.
Yeah, and it was very fun to get a 7-star rating after the match.
Nice. Nice. You get ratings after match and stuff. So
yeah, you get the Meltzer stars.
You get the Meltzer stars. I like that. And they're so I think that's what I'm kind of leading into is that this game knows what it's trying to be. It's like, okay, they have to introduce themselves to the public from the wrestling side. Like WWE can be of the moment. They can say, here is the bloodline stuff in the new WWE game. You can't do that with AEW because they're still a much smaller promotion. So they're kicking it off by saying, this is who we are. This is our history. This is a lot of the characters. And I think part of that is also the game has been in such long in development that characters like Kenny Omega is different. CM Punk is different in this. Obviously, MJF is very different from his character development.
And it also like Cody Rhodes is in the game.
Cody Rhodes is still in this game,
and he hasn't been in the company for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, and so
William Regal is like the tutorial.
You saw William Regal's tutorial, and he's not in the company for
he's in WWE.
Months. So I was gonna say, so it's because of that, because it's been so long in development, and again, Kenny Omega's been very hands-on in this thing as well as I think Aubrey has as well. And so it does feel a little dated from that standpoint. But if you are a lapsed wrestling gamer like I am, if you're someone who's just getting into AEW, or even if you're like actually a hardcore AEW fan, if you're not like a wrestling elitist type of person, I think this is actually a really good a good starting point for AEW and understanding what AEW is. Now, that being said, it is light on content because the career mode is only like 4 months worth of events. There's only like 16 16
and there's
weeks of battles, and you pass the Casino Royale, and there's very minimal choose your own adventure type of stuff that sort of takes place. It's super linear.
I like the idea of a lot of the stuff it's doing, like like
the mini games and
the mini games. I could
do without
rid of them. Just get rid of them. But like in the Road to the Elite, I like the idea of like, okay, you got hurt in that match, so you got to go to the hospital and nurse yourself, and maybe have a meal, and you have to sort of make
a press conference and
do your media scrum and stuff like that. Stuff's fun, but it never really feels like it means a whole lot of anything.
Exactly, because you hit a button to play, and it's like, I'm going to select media scrum, and it plays itself. I'm going to select eat a meal, and it plays. By the way, I will say those are kind of funny because I had Luchasaurus yell at me about or teach me about big pizzas or wherever in New York. That was actually kind of funny.
I like the photo op things.
The photo op thing
silly.
Is fun.
And I do like that when you start your career, it asks you if you're a vegetarian or not. So it can change the food that you eat. It doesn't change,
and it is like local foods and stuff. It's funny because you'll go to any place you eat your food at, and it'll show you like a picture of the food at the end. But the problem I have is that while those are interesting, you're not actually you can go to the gym. You're not actually working out in the gym. You're just selecting light, medium, or difficult workout. I would actually love to press buttons and do the actual workouts.
So it's not like in No More Heroes where you got to go to the gym.
Yeah,
and you're like,
I would Yeah, I would rather do that, like the No More Hero style, than this
I
where you're
feel
just
like
hitting the button and it.
I feel like that's Fight Forever 2 or whatever the fuck they're gonna call it.
And I think this is baby steps towards Fight Forever too. I think they kind of felt what this game feels like. It's like, hey, we needed to. This has been so far in development. We need to get this sucker out, and I can almost guarantee you they're already working on the next one. They've already got the season pass stuff figured out because a lot of like the really popular wrestlers aren't even in this now.
I don't know if this is the place to talk about it in the review, but there's stuff that has come out online about a mode that is definitely in the game that is not in this game, and they haven't talked about.
Wink.
But
we won't talk about it. But
we won't talk about it in our review. But it seems weird to not. Because that is the mode that is so removed from what this game is that I'm kind of fascinated by it. I will say this. In terms of like the creator wrestler mode, it's not good. It's very not good. It's old school. It is definitely like it has a lot of options to make a wrestler wrestle like somebody. Like if you wanted to make a Roman Reigns, you could easily make a wrestler that wrestles like Roman Reigns, but it is virtually impossible to make him look like Roman Reigns.
Here's my guy, by the way, Joe Questicle.
With the Fist of the North Star scars.
Fist of the North Star scars. I have some bullet wounds in there.
Those aren't bullet wounds. Those are Fist of the North Star scars.
Yeah, I know.
You got punched so hard.
No, it's here. I'm going to share this tab. This is Questicle versus Brian Cage. One of the first matches you're up against is Brian Cage. They are. It is. Even the creator. The creation mode is very light. Like I couldn't get anywhere near what I look like because there's only like 10 different heads total from men and women, and so it's definitely lacking. Again, I really feel like they probably thought we need to get this game out. It's been so long in development that we're missing our window. We got to get this out, around Forbidden Door, around our next, because they're going to Europe over the summer, and they got to get out before that, because then you're already starting to talk the next WWE. You're talking about the next cycle is already being talked about. We just talked about Summer Game Fest. People are already worried about the stuff that's in the fall. This game could get lost if it was put off any more. So
career mode's kind of a bust. Creator wrestler is definitely, I would say, definitely a bust. The mini games aren't anywhere near as they're adding more with the season pass, but who cares? At the end of the day, though, the actual act of wrestling is so good.
Fun.
It's so fun, and the one thing I appreciate a lot about the wrestling in this, first of all, I'm kind of bummed that the entrances are the way they are in this. They're not full entrances, so you don't really get to experience like the big thematic nonsense with a lot of the entrances. But I do like that you can change the camera angle and you get to control the pyro. That's very cool. But I like all of the small things that they have in this game. And there's some things that you don't think you'd be able to do that you can absolutely do in this game. Like you can find like a skateboard and skateboard around the ring,
cool.
Skateboard in the ring. And then you can also dive off the skateboard over the top rope and suicide dive onto your opponent. You can randomly, you'll pull out a bag of tacks in the, like hardcore what's the hardcore equivalent? Lights out matches.
Lights out.
And like the tacks stay in the ring and stay on the wrestler. You can catch wrestlers midair. Like it's like it does stuff that WWE games don't do a lot, which is just sort of like gamify wrestling. It's very fun. I like some of the weird small, like if you click in the right stick as Adam Cole, he lowers his knee pad.
Yeah.
which is a nice touch because that's what he does before he gives his finishing move, which is running knee to the back of the head. He'll lower his knee pad so it does more damage. Or like if you do that while playing as Orange Cassidy, he'll go sloth style and put his hands in his pockets. And all of these things, like if you wrestle as the wrestler would wrestle, you get buffs as well. So you'll get taunting buffs and you'll get the sloth style buffs and you'll get like performance buffs that like give you increased defense or movement or attack, or it's really cool the way they sort of it pays to play in character.
Yes,
in a lot of what in this game, which is kind of unheard of because like so many of these games don't play that way. The wrestling games don't really care. You can play as a babyface or a heel no matter what the character is and this stuff like. But this game incentivizes you playing as who you're playing as to like be a smart ass and run away and things. It's kind of neat.
It's and I think that's kind of the gist of this is everything around the in-ring action is kind of boring and
I would say bad.
Is it bad? Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, it's just not interesting at all.
Yeah.
But the in-ring action where my brother and I are, because when I play with friends, we're just going to select the fighter that we want to. We're going to select Kenny Omega. We're going to select MJF. We're going to select CM Punk. We're going to select, all the, Britt Baker. We're going to select these fighters. And we're just going to play.
That's another thing. This game does have intergender wrestling, which hasn't been. I think it's been. It's been since like WWE SmackDown 2007
that it's been around,
or something. Yeah,
I noticed that too. But yeah, that's how I'm gonna play this. And I went through the career mode and I was like, okay, I'm done with it. I unlocked everything, which isn't a ton, and then I just wrestle. I just would play it. And again, I think the in-ring action of this is so solid. It's so fun. It's so chonky. It feels so right that. Like, this is what I want a wrestling game to be from the actual wrestling standpoint.
I will say at the end of the day, though, the thing that bums me out about this game is how, I don't know, the roster feels wrong. Like, there's a lot of, like, notably missing people that aren't even announced for DLC. Like it is kind of insane that the Acclaim aren't in this.
The
Acclaim
again, I think
and Billy Gunn,
it's the timing thing and
their
music thing and
their theme song is in it. Like it's stuff like Danhausen is going to be DLC. FTR is going to be Evil Uno. Isn't in this game. You have two other members of the Dark Order. You have John
Silver.
Johnny Hungy.
And
what's her name? My brain is
but
that's your Dark Order representation.
Yep.
Like that's kind of fucked up. Like I don't know why Evil Uno isn't in this, especially since he's been kind of their promotion for this game. He's streaming it all the time and he was doing roster reveals and stuff, but he's not in the game and he's not like part of the roster. It's so weird.
Like, I think it's just it's timing, it's development. They're not a giant.
There's no timing.
There's no excuse. But
for Evil Uno in particular, timing has no. He's been there since damn near day one.
True.
And they have other members of the Dark Order in it. Brody Lee, who's been dead for 1.5 years, is in this game. But
there are definitely weird decisions.
There are two dead people on the roster in this game, and Evil Uno isn't.
But yeah, that being said, I think it's a solid first start. I'm going to be recommending this to people who don't know,
if
who are just getting into AEW.
I've seen some videos of people having some serious bug issues.
I had zero.
I had like one that wasn't particularly a bug, but like you could tell was about to become a serious issue until it kind of like fixed itself shortly thereafter.
Mine was I was having issues early on. I mentioned I'm like, this game is buggy as heck. It ended up being my Steam Deck just because I was downloading 50 Steam Next for demos
what-
in the
yeah.
background, which just
When-
murdered
when I
anything on a Steam Deck.
When I first booted this game up, I booted it up through my computer, plugged into my TV, and it tried to blast this game out at like full 4K resolution.
Oh, geez.
Which it can't.
Yeah,
It doesn't. And
Not with a Steam Deck.
yeah.
And I will say this. I'm totally enjoying this game. We haven't been doing scores for side questing, but this is a solid 7 for this. I'm putting it right there because
I'm a 4-star kind of guy when it comes to review scales, and I would give this like a 2.5. I think it's which is
a 2.5
out of
2.5. Yeah,
half a tuna. Yep.
But yeah, I think I'm happy with where I'm satisfied with where they're starting. I think they realize what they needed to get out.
It's a good foundation.
It's a good foundation. Fight Forever 2 or Double or Nothing or whatever they want to call the next one is.
God, they better call it Double or Nothing. I mean,
the name is right there.
Yeah.
I think it's they're going to learn a lot from really getting back into this, understanding what it takes to do a modern wrestling game. And I think by then,
people complained
AEW
that there was
more established, and I think that's. I do think that they've announced some season pass fighters. I think they're going to have to put more season pass folks in there just so they can keep people fighting forever on this game,
especially if that other mode ends up being a thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good foundation for a wrestling game, and it's as a pure wrestling game, it's definitely it's one of the best ones, and sort of like, and it's not as good as like Fire Pro. I think that's the sort of premier wrestling game, especially with some of the downloadable content for the most recent one. It has pretty good story mode and stuff, but it's definitely pure gameplay wise, definitely way more fun to play than anything the WWE has put out in a significant amount of time.
It's an incredibly fun game. I'm enjoying it. I have enjoyed multiplayer online. I can't wait to play in a room couch.
Yeah, I do love that it also tracks wins and losses like AEW.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm recommending this strictly from the wrestling side of things. It's like we finally have a game that's super fun to play in the ring. Yeah, again, there's all kinds of stuff outside of the ring. There's fighters are missing. There's all that, but the in-ring action is great, and I think the solid foundation is there. And it's if you're just getting into AEW and understanding what it is, I think it's perfect for that. And it's available on everything starting tomorrow.
I'm very
literally
curious.
Everything.
I'm very curious to see how the Switch version runs. I need to know.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.